Hi, my name is Brian Iberg, and today I'm going to be playing Chopin's Etude in A-flat major, and I'll also be talking about some of the technique that Chopin was trying to teach in this particular etude. Sometimes this piece has the nickname called the Aeolian Harp Etude. So please join me while we go through this piece, and I hope you can pick up a couple things along the way. So if you notice when I play the beginning of this etude that my wrists have a really good rotation in them, I really believe that Chopin wrote this etude trying to teach a good wrist rotation. I think he had that in mind when he wrote this piece. It's difficult to play it without good wrist rotation, and it's really important to the technique of this piece. So if you notice, the first note of each sextuplet I bring that note out a little bit. So each one of those is a melody note. And so it's important to not just bring those out, but to really make them sing, because that's a singing melody. And also we want to shape the phrases as we're playing that melody. So as the phrase goes, as you get towards the middle of the phrase, it gets a little bit louder, and as you go towards the end of the phrase, it gets a little bit softer. Now, if you notice that as I play, my wrist is rotating like this. That's really important when you play this piece, to have good wrist rotation. My teacher, Doug, in Boston, he used to say that the wrist would move towards the fall board as you went around, with this being the fall board. But many teachers would just say you need to rotate your wrists when you're playing this piece. So it's really important to have that good wrist technique, but it's also important to think of the arm as one unit from the top of the shoulder to the tip of the finger. If we think of the arm as just being from the elbow to the tip of the finger, we might have a tendency to play more like this. But if you're using your whole arm to play, the upper arm becomes awake and you have a much greater freedom of motion when you play, so that when your wrist rotates, the upper part of the arm, let me see if I can move the camera just a little bit to get more of my arm into it, and see now how my upper arm moves when I play. If I was holding my upper arm stiff at my side, it would create a lot of tension in my wrist. And then I even, with good wrist rotation, my fingers still get tired towards the end of this etude. It's only about 3 minutes long. And I start to feel some tension in my fingers and hands and forearms. So even with good rotation, you're going to have some fatigue in the muscles, and you don't want that. And so you need to have a loose upper arm so that's free to move. I might just try to move this tiny bit, a little more. Yeah, so you can see more of my arm, and you can see my wrist move. So when I play, some teachers would say, and I can imagine like my teacher, Dr. Nagel at Michigan, would be adamant about this. Some teachers would say that the rotation is what makes that melody note stick out. They would say, don't accent that note, let the rotation do it. I'm not sure if I 100% agree with that. That could be a touch extreme. I think you do have to control the sound of that melody note each time a little bit every time you play it, because you're still trying to shape that melody note. I guess you can control it with the weight of your arm, how much weight you allow to go into that melody note key, because we are dropping the weight of our arm into the keyboard every time we play. So yeah, when we play, we always want to drop the weight of the entire arm into the keyboard. This creates that's how we create a beautiful tone on the piano. And we control that weight, so if we want to play louder, we can let more weight drop into the keyboard, and if we want to play softer, we can let less weight drop into the keyboard. So when we're playing this piece, our hands are moving like this, really kind of like a ballet dance, or it's like a synchronized dance movement almost, where the wrists are moving outward away from each other and then towards each other. And it's hard to believe that Chopin didn't absolutely know he was creating that movement when he wrote this piece. I think he did it on purpose to teach this good wrist technique. There are many pieces where you have to have good rotation in your wrist at the piano while keeping nice firm fingers. So you don't want to have mushy fingers. You don't want to play straight with straight fingers. Keep them nice and curved, and keep your wrist pretty high. So that's important. And have good wrist rotation, and let the upper arm be free when you play. All these things are important in creating a beautiful tone with this particular etude. And it's true of a lot of pieces. If you look at, for example, the Ballade in G minor. If you don't have good wrist rotation, you really can't play that passage very well. It's a little bit more of a controlled wrist rotation there. So in the harp etude, though, in this middle section, it's interesting because Chopin goes to the key of C major here. He modulates through a lot of different keys in that section. Chopin was a master of modulating from one key to another chromatically, and doing it so subtly that you almost don't even know it's happening. In the C sharp minor etude, it's amazing, that last page, Chopin modulates down through the keys back to C sharp minor, and it's really neat. If you ever study that etude, look at the last page, the last section where Chopin sort of modulates to the end. It's really pretty incredible how he does that. And the last part would be the finale of this etude. on this part, it's important to be up on the thumb. You can't see it from this angle, but if I showed you with my left hand, the thumb is actually kind of at a diagonal angle to the keys in the right hand. And again, you have to have that good wrist rotation. That's really important. And I was going to say in that middle section too, I practice that slowly a lot. I practice that slowly because it's really easy to play wrong notes in there. Not that it isn't easy to play wrong notes in the first section, but it's a little easier than when you're modulating. I do that slowly a lot in there, and I start back over. With little points on the tips of my fingers for some of those notes so that I can make sure that each note is correct and I practice them slowly, and I think that's really important. So those are just some basic ideas for the technique for this etude. Hopefully you can configure some of those into your playing, or maybe they will reinforce what your teacher is teaching you. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully it was helpful. And don't forget to subscribe to my page and to like this video and leave a comment and let me know if there's anything else you'd like to see in the future. And I'll see you back on my channel soon. Bye-bye.